As electric vehicles enter the mainstream, we're starting to see a ripple effect across the automotive EV supply chain, from dealerships to repair shops, from roadside assistance to comprehensive insurance. Beyond conventional production vehicles, there's a growing market of specialist electric vehicles, from supercars to converted classics, from specialist catering vehicles to everyday electric fleets and taxis. We are joined by Martin Hall, active underwriter from ERS, the specialist motor insurer, to get under the bonnet of specialist EVs in the world of motor insurance and how providing the right cover takes specialist knowledge. So Martin, can you explain to me why electric vehicles are so important to your business?
Yeah, well, at the moment there's a big growing demand for electric vehicles, and we've seen that in recent announcements with all new cars being electric from 2030. So we're seeing quite a lot of demand into the business and requests for cover for electric vehicles compared to what we'd seen before.
So that has gone up then, the request for electric vehicle coverage. You've seen a really marked increase in that.
Yeah, and whilst we see it in what we class as sort of mainstream vehicles, we're seeing a big increase in what we class as more specialist risks as well. And they're exactly the sort of risks that we really like as an insurer to take on, the ones that many other insurers would shy away from. And we've got quite a few good examples of risks that we've seen recently. You know, we've seen a customer who converted his 1982 Ferrari 308 and put a Tesla engine into it as well. And again, that really needs the customer to deal with a specialist broker who then can provide all that information to one of our underwriters for us and able to offer cover for a risk like that.
Do you also do fleets, like someone buying 400 cars?
Yeah, and we see some of the big, some big fleet customers moving again to electric, and we're quite happy to consider, you know, most of them have a mixture of vehicles, and we're happy to consider that as well, yeah. Because
it feels like there's a lot of changes within the market in terms of people's consciousness about the impact they're having. Like if you use a diesel delivery van, you can tell people are kind of thinking, is this the right thing to use? Could I use an electric one? Are there other examples of that, of where electric vehicles are starting to really come to the fore?
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of interest in electric catering vans, especially with festival season starting as well, and the green angle of electric as well. We've definitely seen it being a big appeal in that sector.
Right, because I suppose, yeah, if you're selling, organic vegan burgers, but you're out of the back of a diesel van that's ticking over to keep the generators going, that's not a good look.
Not a good look at all, I don't think, no.
So that's really interesting. I haven't come across these yet. So these are proper catering vans where the entire catering machinery, the fridges, the cooker and everything is running off the batteries.
Off the same battery that powers the vehicle as well, yeah.
And then particularly if you're in a urban street setting and you're doing street food, you don't want an exhaust pumping out stuff in the street. So
no, that's right. And we've seen similar with ice cream vans. I think, electric ice cream vans, I think, are probably a pretty good thing when you've got children stood around as well and things like that. So we definitely insure quite a number of them as well.
So what do you see as the future of specialist electric vehicle insurance?
I think it'll follow some of the trends of mainstream electric vehicle insurance. Whilst we know 100% of new vehicles by 2030 are going to be electric, even by next year it's going to be 30% of new sales.
Wow, it's that steep an increase, because I looked, I think 2 years ago, and it was sort of 2%. And this year I've just heard it's 14%, so it's growing that much. You reckon 30% by next year?
Yeah, I think that's a prediction. And whilst you see the vehicles on the road, it's hard to sort of count them up and equate whether it's that amount, but yeah, it's a big increase.
Because it's also, I suppose, the range of things that are, I often think electric vehicle, I think car or maybe van or taxi. I don't think of all the other things like diggers, dustbin lorries. We've seen lots of those becoming electric.
Yeah, that's right. And I think buses, as well, and minibuses, but agricultural vehicles as well. So I think you can probably look across most of the specialist products we do and see where there's an element of electric vehicles.
Right, because that's the thing. It's easy to forget when you're outside that industry. Yeah, you've got a tractor. You want to have that insured as well. I mean, you might not be driving it down the M4, but it needs to be insured.
Yeah, and combined harvesters and all the trailers and all the other equipment in agriculture as well. Yeah, we cover all of that.
And that is going to be, I mean, certainly the commercial vehicle sector, so delivery vans, things like that, I think are going to be electric long before all the private cars are.
Yeah, I think anywhere where the cost of fuel is a big part of the expense of the business, you can see why electric's going to be really attractive for them, that's for sure.
So why are ERS seen as the kind of EV specialists?
I think for two reasons. One, we've made some changes to our policy cover, so we cover the charging cables for damage or theft. and also liability cover if anybody trips over the cables. We've made that really clear to customers about what cover is in place. We've also had to make it really clear in terms of that the cover is in place for leased batteries as well, which again could be a grey area for customers.
Right, oh I see. So if you buy a vehicle but you lease the battery and there's a fault with the battery, how are you covered for that problem?
Yeah, and because the batteries, if they're damaged, often need to go back to the manufacturers and can't just be repaired. So we need to make sure that's really clear in the cover as well.
What is it you really need to focus on and to consider when you're working in this specific area? What questions have you got to ask?
One of the most obvious considerations is the speed of the vehicle, which has clearly increased considerably compared to what you could buy for a petrol engine for the same price. So we definitely, in terms of the number of accidents and the speed, that's definitely one of the things we need to consider.
And I mean, and I suppose in a sense it's the acceleration. I mean, that's the thing that everyone that goes in an electric car is surprised at. Even in the cheaper, lower end ones, they still accelerate. They're out the door pretty quick.
And when we're underwriting supercars, one of the key things we ask is, have you got experience of driving a car that performs in that way? But now we're seeing mainstream cars that match the performance of supercars as well. So that's a big consideration for us.
Yeah. Now, if you're unfortunate enough to be in a low-speed prang, where maybe you bust a couple of lights and bash the bumper in, is the cost of repairing that on an electric vehicle more than a petrol or diesel car?
Certainly we're seeing the cost of all cars costing more to replace, cameras in the front of bumpers, big electronic dashboards compared to all plastic dashboards are all costing a lot more to repair, and I've seen cameras in the rear bumpers as well, which didn't exist in the past and certainly cost a lot more to repair.
So the speed of the repair, because that's presumably going to make an impact on the insurance. If it takes longer to fix it, that means you've got the car off the road for longer.
Yeah, that's right, and that means customers are in hire cars longer, which increases the amount of the claim. So having the availability of parts and the technology from the dealerships to repair the vehicles is going to be really important.
So it's the bits you need to replace on the car. There's a waiting list effectively for those.
And also garages are also having to improve their capabilities to repair electric cars. Not all garages have historically repaired them, so they're having to invest in technology to enable them to do so as well.
So can you tell me about the kind of the breadth of the coverage that you do? Because it sounds pretty wide that you're covering a hell of a lot of different vehicles. Yeah,
most of the areas that we cover, you can see where electric vehicles are going to form part of the type of risk we insure going forwards. In supercars, it could be the Porsche Taycan, or if in classic cars, we're seeing them conversions of people putting electric engines into classic cars, but we're also seeing catering vehicles, electric taxis, agricultural vehicles as well. And we also cover, also in our breakdown cover, we also have to recover vehicles that are broken down because they've run out of power in the battery as opposed to run out of petrol as well. So yeah, most of our products are going to change over time because of electric vehicles.
Right, and I mean some of the classic cars that we've seen converted, they're not always the Ferraris or the Porsches. They're sometimes quite, run-of-the-mill old saloon cars that people love.
That's right, yeah, and I think as parts become harder to acquire to replace some of the engines in a Morris Minor or a Mini, you can see why the vehicle still looks like a classic but has got a much more efficient engine in there as well.
Well, thanks to ERS for a fascinating insight into the world of specialist electric motor insurance and how they're helping their broker partners make the shift to specialist EVs. This is the first of 5 episodes on specialist electric vehicles, so stay tuned for more.